UFC 330 is in the books, and surprisingly, it was actually a relatively fair, good, dare I say, card. Going into it, I think a lot of us thought it was a very lacking, it was. On paper, it was a lacking card, but a lot of the fights were pretty entertaining, especially the main event between Islam Makhachev against Ian Machado Garry for the welterweight title. And unless you've been living under a rock, Islam is once again, he's a winner. He's defended his title successfully in a solid, tough win against Ian Garry. Ian showed up and made it pretty difficult for Islam, especially after the first 2 rounds. Once he woke up, once he started to find his groove and settle in, look, it was a solid fight, and it kind of played out similar to how I previewed it on my previous video. Go ahead and check that out, or be on the lookout in the future for when I do these preview videos for those numbered events. And it was, Ian Garry, good job for the most part defending takedowns on the ground. He did a good job of not allowing Islam to really impose his will significantly. I know Islam had a lot of control, but minus ground control, he wasn't really threatening, and Ian did a good job holding him up. And you get credit for not allowing your opponent to really do enough damage on you with ground and pound or submissions, and kind of stiff arming him from doing anything. You get credit. I think you get more credit for that than you as someone who was just holding him up against the fence, especially. So that's why I like the cards that have it 3-2 in favor of Islam. He won it, no controversy. It was easy. It was closer than I think a lot of people think, and I feel like Ian's not getting enough credit. But that's probably one of the toughest fights we've seen out of Islam since the Dustin Poirier fight, or even the Alexander Volkanovski fight from 3 years ago. But yeah, now Islam's gotten it. He's now broken Anderson Silva's record for the longest winning streak in the UFC history. He's definitely entering the GOAT conversation if he wasn't already. But now I guess what the question is for him is, what is next? What is next for Islam Makhachev? And it stands clear, when is he going to fight again, and who? So let's look at that. What are his options? Because Ian Garry, now that it's over, we'll worry about who Ian's going to face and how he gets back to the title. But for Islam, I think, to me, it's the most obvious what the UFC can make, and it's to set him up against Carlos Prates. How can it be anyone else? I know Michael Morales is a beast. He did a great job just nuking Sean Brady last November, but he hasn't fought since. And just because you have one vastly impressive victory, who was a number 1 seed at the time, the number 1 ranked fighter in Sean Brady, doesn't necessarily mean you should be in the next title fight. I've been thinking it's so weird of Morales holding out this whole time. Meanwhile, Prates went out there and got another win recently when he went to go all the way to Australia to beat Jack Della Maddalena in his own territory. So that was a hell of a win by him, and completely dominated JDM. And he's kind of been lighting up opponents in the last few fights. Leon Edwards never been knocked out before. Jeff Neal never been. He's been doing things that no one's done before, and he's doing it in savage ways. So he's more than justified, more than credible as the person that needs to be next for Islam Makhachev, because he's gone out there. He's got a winning streak against opponents. He has everything where Morales just has his one impressive win, and he hasn't fought recently. Prates is your next guy. There should be no debate as to who is next for Islam Makhachev. And plus, I saw at the press conference after this fight, Islam said I'm down to get one more fight in before Ramadan, which I think he said he pretty much has until January. That's the last time he can fight again. So cool. That's 4 to 5 months away. Get that going, or even December, whatever. He says he's not too hurt. He's not going to need much. Make that fight in the next 4 months. There should be no excuses. And then that way, it's if Islam is the winner, then okay, we're not going to have a welterweight fight for at least half a year. And he got his 2 fights in a nice little span from August to January. It just makes too much sense to be Prates. And plus, you don't want to leave Prates on ice for too long. He just fought a few months ago. So the longer he gets, maybe you collect some rust. And he's not going to be as sharp. But if you're Prates, you definitely need as much time as you can to prepare for the onslaught that's Islam Makhachev's coming through. He's a freaking speeding train the way he's going to come at you for his takedowns. And it's you kind of start to think about it, does Prates even have a shot that much against Islam? Yes, he's the most deserving. He should get it. But I think this is where, and I've been seeing a lot, that Morales should be the next guy, because he's the one that will make it tougher on Islam. And honestly, I don't disagree with that. There is something to be said because of Morales' size, his strength, and while he's not, brilliant on the ground, he's not an elite wrestler or anything, I think he has enough skill to make it challenging on Islam because of his height, because of his range, because of his strength. And you just saw it right now. Islam couldn't really ragdoll Ian that much. You know, he had his moments, but Ian did a great job. But how's he going to do it against Morales, who's stronger and tougher? You know, Islam's got the better jiu-jitsu, the ground game and everything. He's more technically savvy. But what's going to happen when you do against go against a guy who's more of a physical specimen, who's more of a physical freak in Morales? So I think if you're looking between who's going to be the more challenging fighter for Islam, it's most likely going to be Morales, because at least he has some sufficient skill there, right? You can't say that about Carlos Prates. Like, any type of wrestling, he has none. He has none. I'd be stunned if Prates stuffs multiple takedowns from Islam, or even just one. I can see it easily. Like, in the first 30 seconds, Islam gets him down, and then we just never see Carlos Prates gets up again. So it's almost like, while one is deserving, it'd be cool if like Prates can snipe him on a takedown or get enough stand-up work to piece him up, like we saw Poirier did. That would be probably the game plan that Prates might want to follow. Because Dustin Poirier in that title fight a couple years ago was sensational. He was a beast, a man on a mission, and did a good job, enough of a good job defending takedowns and preventing the submission until it was too late, right? In the 5th round, you're damaged, you're gassed down. So, no matter how it's going to go, I'm always going to side with what's more justified, who's been treating us more. And while the better fight probably right now is Michael Morales, Carlos Prates has been he's been putting the work in and doing it in an impressive fashion. If he doesn't get it, then what's the point of making these nice, impressive wins? Now, you could probably make the case that it's probably better that Prates fights Islam now, because then it's like, cool, now we get Islam against Morales, because probably likely Islam is going to win, right, against Prates, barring like some home run nuclear fist that sends Islam to the Shadow Realm. So I think that's the most obvious thing you could do. Match him up with Carlos Prates. He's the most deserving. And I'm just not really messing too much or coinciding, aligning that Michael Morales should be the guy. You know, doesn't make it tougher, sure, but we want to go at least with some people getting rewarded. And I know being like the ranking system doesn't necessarily hold much weight anymore, especially in the last 2 years. But look, he's gone out there, 3-fight winning streak, knocked out Jeff Neal. I know Jeff Neal was like borderline ranked player, ranked fighter. Leon Edwards barely top 10, and then he went out there and just dismantled the previous welterweight champion even more impressively than Islam did. So I think, yeah, you hella give him that, right? And he's gonna draw more viewers. I think Prates also has he's the more attractive fighter. He's got the bigger fan base. He's got the bigger marketing than Morales, and I think part of that issue is because Morales hasn't been fighting. If Morales just had one fight in the last 2-3 months and did anywhere close to what he did against Sean Brady, even if it's a 2nd round finish or something like that, then it's like, all right, now it's very tough. Because honestly, you can look on my channel, I've said before, like, the UFC should just force Carlos Prates and Michael Morales to fight. That'd be the most obvious thing to do, because you have a title #1 contender eliminator, boom, like, because Islam's probably going to wait, because even though he says he wants to fight in the next 4 months, like, odds are he's probably just going to wait again until like the end of summer. So those two are better off fighting each other. The UFC would also definitely feast on those ratings, because that would be, my God, that's a matchup waiting to happen. And why wait? But it's clear Carlos has been dug in ever since he beat JDM. His feet are in cement, and it's dried off. It's officially, he's in there. He's waiting for the title fight, and I don't blame him at all. So the UFC has to make it clear, like, hey, Prates has been your guy. He's put food on your table. He's done a great job. Send him out there for Islam. And then maybe they'll probably regret it, because I'd be shocked if Islam doesn't beat Prates or even finishes him in the first few rounds, because Prates is really going to have to, his whole training camp should just be like, I'm just going to practice defending takedowns, maybe do some strengthening and just do something, because he needs zero sharpening of his tools on the feet, because I think he's got Islam beat there by wide enough margin to where it's just like, I'm going to spend 90-95% of my camp strengthening, conditioning, and just making sure I know what I'm doing on the ground and defending takedowns, because I'm scared for him if he gets taken down by Islam that we don't see him get up again. And then that's when people are probably going to push back and say, this is where Michael Morales could be more better, because he had the strength to hold up enough, even though he might not be the sharpest technically. So it's obvious to me who the UFC should make, and it's without question and shouldn't really be that debated or intensely talked about.